paper to the front. Guys, you can collect the paper. You can ask your paper.
Sheikh, are you going to tell us why he added weak hadith in the book?
It's not enough time. But I gave you the general reason. And that is, well, first and foremost, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Hadithu an bani Israel wa la haraj." You're allowed to narrate from the Israelites. How many people are between the Arabs of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time and the Israelites? بينهما مفاوز تنقطع فيها أعناق المطي. One of the earlier Muslims, he said about a hadith that a man narrated, missing a chain of narration, missing a few people. He said between this one and the Prophet ﷺ is a distance or distances in which camels' necks would snap. A camel is notorious for having the ability to traverse great distances with very little food and water. So between you and the Prophet, he says, are deserts, wastelands, in which camels wouldn't make it out of. So if that's between this man of the 3rd, 4th, etc. century and the Prophet, imagine the Sahaba to what? Banu Israel. But the Prophet clearly said what? Narrate from them. So there's a difference between narrating a hadith and saying the Prophet said it. There's a difference between speaking to a scholar or a student of knowledge and speaking to a lay person. There's a difference between you saying there's a hadith that states. There's a hadith which is weak, but the meaning, there's a difference. These are some of the justifications why the ulama mentioned weak hadiths in their books. And first and foremost, it's starting off, who said it was haram? Wallahu alam, that's in brief. We've explained this, inshallah, you can go back to the explanation of Fadl al-Ilm al-Salaf al-Ilm al-Khalaf of Ibn Rajab. Is one of the first books that I explained on the channel years ago. And in there we brought up this issue of the conflict between what you hear from this scholar, you can't mention any da'if hadith, versus those great ulama quoting hadiths which were authentic and inauthentic. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Before the break, you mentioned that there was a whole method that because of the fact that the hadiths came within time and whatnot, something like that. So I was wondering, why don't we just take the last method?
Clear. Well, the madhabs, they're going to be different in theory and in practice. Each one is different. Each one has a different style, a different way of looking at it, a different source. Understand? And the last one isn't going to be absolutely superior. Sometimes, oftentimes, that which comes last is best, such as the Muslims, the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are the last and the first. We will come before them, even though they came what? Before us. And then there are other times which just because something is later on doesn't mean it's best. You understand? So you have to pick and choose which madhab is best for you to study and to practice, based off of your abilities and your personality. Wallahu alam. Wa yakum. Clear. Yeah, the genre in general is called adab al-talab or adab al-talab, the etiquette of studying and learning. Yes. So in many libraries, you'll find a section on the books pertaining to the culture of seeking knowledge. And this is definitely included in that. But this is a bit finely tuned. Within the circle of seeking ilm is seeking hadiths. You understand? So yes, there are several books. We've explained them and mentioned them. The book of Ibn Rajab, but Ibn Rajab is later on. There's scholars who came hundreds of years before him who wrote books just on ilm. Some of them we've explained and made in English on the channel, and there are others as well, many of them. There are scholars of the 3rd century Rather, the ulama who wrote those books and compiled those books, they put in hadiths and chapters on ilm. Such as, so Imam al-Bukhari's book. In Imam al-Bukhari's book, there is Kitabul Ilm. Kitabul Ilm. So a person could take that one section and say, I'm going to focus on this. Well, how could that? Wallahu alam.
Sorry, so is it a different subject with all of them, or is it under the same?
It's same. Yeah, bidnillahi ta'ala. Virtues, do's and don'ts, obligations, types of knowledge, giving dawah, teaching, giving fatwa, so on and so forth. Yes. Wa yakum.
We'll take one more question from the brother. Malik? Hold on.
Okay. Clear. There's no contradiction. There are different levels and the different types. Narrating from the Israelites versus believing or rejecting. Staying busy with something versus something being on the side. It's not supposed to become your, it's a side course, an appetizer or dessert, versus making that your main entree. La, that can't be your starch and your meat, your veg, la. So there are people who stay busy with these different narrations instead of staying busy with the sunnah narrations. Understand? Or for a person in which you have no business reading that, you don't need to read that. You got everything that you need. Just stick with this. Wa hakadha. Wallahu alam.
So we'll ask all the brothers, inshallah, to exit the room. Jazakallah khair for coming out and benefiting. And we hope to see you tomorrow, same time, here at the same room. Also tonight there's a lecture at Gatno Mosque after Isha. And the topic is preparing for Ramadan. So inshallah, I hope you guys can make it out to that lecture as well. I'm going to head out with them, inshallah.
Barakallahu fikum. Hayakum Allah. الله يبارك فيك في امان الله في حفظ الكريم بكره ان شاء الله نشوف بعض ابشروا الله يبارك فيكم بارك الله فيكم حياكم الله السلام.
Can I have your number?
I'll give you an email address if you like, inshallah, okay? Inshallah. بارك الله فيك. Maybe later on. Mahmoud G will give it to you, okay? Brother Mahmoud will give the email, all right? Inshallah. بارك الله فيكم وإياكم. Inshallah, give my slams to your pops. بإذن الله. Sorry. حياك الله بارك الله فيكم وإياكم. Tell you, Ammar, how we doing this?
You can ask me questions directly too.
Okay.
Or do you prefer
However they want.
play it?
You just let me know, inshallah, when they're ready to start.
So they can ask questions directly.
Tell you.
It'll be 20 minutes and then you end it. Inshallah, the Q&A.
Okay. Khair, inshallah. All right, so are there any questions? Barakallahu fikum. Barakallahu fikum.
I just had a question.
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, are there any other books about hadith or like any
Several.
that are like translated into English
Several.
that are this one like that you would recommend?
There are several. Yes. Inshallah, we can provide you with that. There are books written by the author in English as well that pertain to some of the manners of what to do, such as the book the author has a book which is called Iqtida'ul Ilm al-Amal. The requirement of knowledge is action. That's in English. Okay, and there are other scholars who came before and after him who wrote books just on what? The different do's and don'ts of seeking knowledge.
Okay.
Understood? And we can provide you with that, inshallah. Okay, bismillah.
Say there's a sister whose head sought after marriage, so would you advise her, and she likes a brother, would you advise her to be quote unquote sugar shot or no?
A sister who's highly sought after for marriage, there's a brother that she's interested in, she likes, would you advise her to? Of course. I mean, they say that fortune favors the brave. Good fortune, good luck, quote unquote, health, yani winning, success, it likes people who are brave. And the worst thing that can happen is the brother or the sister says, no, I can't, or no, thank you. No harm, no foul. But you never know what's meant for you until you go for it. So that isn't something which is dishonorable or looked down upon. That's fine. Bismillah. Try, and whatever's meant for you, whatever's qadr, it will take place. There's no doubt about that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. That's what I would say. Wallahu alam. Floor is yours, guys, inshallah. Yes. Can women travel in a group for the sake of knowledge, or do they need a mahram? Many scholars have allowed that. Many scholars, in understanding the hadiths, not just the scholar's opinion, they say that the wisdom of a woman needing a mahram to travel is for safety. And if she has women that are trustworthy with her, then she's safe. So many people of ilm, they've allowed that. They've allowed that. If you do that, if you don't have a mahram to go with you, it isn't something which you're just totally making up off of your desires. Many ulama have allowed that. Wallahu alam. Does it matter? I'm sorry? The number, it doesn't have to be a number based, some of them say another woman, and some of them say a group starting at 3. That's a fair number, right? 3 is always a basic number for things in Islam. A jama'ah, but a jama'ah technically could be 2 people. You understand? And of course, bidnillahi ta'ala, the more, the better. The more women there are in the group, in general, that is going to be further away from those who say that she needs a mahram. There's 10 sisters. It's not the same as just being 1 sister or 2 sisters traveling without a male guardian. Understand? That's what I would say. Wallahu alam. You guys have any other questions? If not, we'll stop. I'm sorry? Signs of humility. Clear. One sign of being humble is that you know there are levels of humility. And the one who deserves your humility the most is Allah Azza wa Jal. So you have no humility in front of Allah, but you have humility in front of the people. That's not true humility. Sign number 2 is that humility in most cases is going to be natural. It isn't something that you got to think about. It isn't an act that you put on. Sign number 3 of humility is that the humility is never extreme. People that go extreme in being humble, in most cases that proves that humility isn't authentic. So from the basic etiquette of someone giving you a compliment is that you say thank you. No matter how humble you are, you never ever reject a person's compliment. So someone says, you have a nice shirt on. Oh no, it's ugly. Trust me, it's dirty shirt, it's nothing. Thank you very much. It's a simple shirt that I got from the store. Even though it could be a really nice shirt. So you never go too far in rejecting something, and when a person does, in most cases, the humility isn't real. You could be shy, you could be humble. Shukran, thanks a lot. That's it, khalas. You don't got to stick out your chest, so on and so forth. So if you said to me, that was a beautiful lecture that you gave. That was a very beneficial lecture. Oh no, I don't know nothing. Trust me, sister, I don't have no knowledge. I have no ilm. All I did was read. That's not real humility. Shukran, jazakallah khairan. I'm glad you enjoyed the lecture. It was a simple, humble, basic lecture. Modest and humble. Never too much mustard on the sandwich. That's a sign, no doubt, of fake piety, etc. Okay, and there are other signs as well. And last but not least, the fourth sign I would probably say is that a person is humble when he doesn't have to be. I'm the smartest person in this room, a person says. But I'm humble among those people that I'm smarter than. Versus I'm in a room full of people that are 10 times smarter than me, now I'm forced to be humble. You get what I'm trying to say? Someone who has a lot of money, if he's a humble person naturally, he's going to be humble among poor people. He's not just going to be humble among, he has $1 million. These are multi-millionaires. These are billionaires he's with. You get the point I'm trying to make? You're a tough person. You're not just going to be humble with people that are bigger and stronger than you. You're going to be easygoing with people that you can easily, you get the point I'm trying to make? Wallahu alam. Signs of? For a? Growing in your heart? A sign of arrogance? Well, first and foremost is being arrogant against Allah. Refusing to obey, refusing to submit. That's unfortunate. Allah help us all. Also, a sign of arrogance is a person always needs to be mentioned and included. A person believes that he is superior to all of the people that he comes across, whether they say it directly or indirectly. And there are things that clearly prove that. And also a sign of arrogance is when a person rejects the clear truth. Not something that's open to interpretation. It's something, I'm not accepting that because I'm better than you. You can't tell me what to do. Well, how can that? Also, being overly argumentative. It's a sign of arrogance as well. You just argue too much. And Allah knows best.
Sister had a question, if having a lash lift is permissible.
A lash lift, like eyelashes?
Yeah.
Clear. The general rule is a woman isn't to do anything to her eyelashes, period. The Prophet ﷺ forbade and he cursed women who take from their eyelashes, who change the law's creation. Be pleased with how Allah made your eyelashes. Thin, thick, bushy, curved, this and that. Be pleased with what Allah gave you. Be happy with what Allah gave you. All right? As far as if it's something which is abnormal, something which is unsightly, it's not normal, then that's perhaps a different story. But in general, leave the eyelashes. Leave them as they are. The best way is the natural way. Wallahu alam. Okay.
She read that so long as the lashes are not human hair, I believe.
Yeah, understood. Some scholars allow it. But if a woman is going to wear fake eyelashes, it should not be outside of the house in front of people that aren't her mahrams. It's in a sister's party, that's one thing. For your husband, that's one thing. Versus I'm walking down the street, everybody's seeing my fake, long, extended eyelashes. That's a problem. For those who allow fake eyelashes. No doubt about that. You didn't lie to her. You didn't tell her anything wrong. That's accurate. Some scholars say it does, and others say that it doesn't. Best to avoid for sure. But if you are going to wear them, that's the most important. If you are going to wear the fake lashes or the colored contact lenses or this or that, there's a certain way that you do it. You get the point I'm trying to make? So let's say, for example, there are many different things of which scholars differ. Can a woman wear this type of clothing? Can a woman do this? Can a woman do that? If you do it, the scholars who do allow it is not supposed to be in front of people that's not supposed to see you like that. That's the point I'm trying to drive home. You got me? Pressed on nails? That should be avoided as well. But if a person does have certain things that they do to their nails, you have to take into consideration wudu, ghusl. You have to take into consideration, are your hands covered, or is this a sitting in which you're doing this around other women and other females versus in the public eye in front of men that aren't your family members? That has to be taken into consideration. Understand? Wallahu alam. Remaining steadfast on your deen after a period of low iman. Clear. Well, I would say try your best to lock down the fundamentals. You may not have enough time to do the extra stuff with all of the vigor and the stamina and the steam and the momentum, but at least make for yourself a point in which this is, I'm not relinquishing this. I'm messed up right now, but I gotta make my 5 prayers. Shaitan can't take that from me. I have problems with my hijab, I have problems with my parents, I disrespected my mother, but I gotta pray on time. Okay? I have to fast the month of Ramadan. I have to do so. Make sure you got the fundamentals locked down. And don't go beyond the fundamentals with regards to giving up on. I have a problem with this, I have a problem with that, but the prayer is off limits. I don't wear hijab, I drink alcohol, I do it, but I gotta pray. You have to make that this is something that I'm not giving up. All right? That's one way of remaining steadfast, is locking down the fundamentals. Secondly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is infection. The people that you're around. Who's in your company? Who you hanging out with? Who are your friends? What are they into? What's their life? What are their lives like? Everything is infectious, good and bad. Righteous sisters, they're going to infect you with that. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, you may be slower than them or behind them, but eventually you're going to catch up with them. So company is everything with regards to consistency, inconsistency, with regards to religious momentum and stamina. Number 3, you got to arm yourself with knowledge. You got to read about the virtue of doing the right thing, about the harm and the danger of doing the wrong thing. You got to read the examples of the people who are just like you, human beings with flesh. Human beings who overcame their desires, who overcame their challenges, who overcame stereotypes, who were put in bad situations, etc. Last but not least is take things slowly. Every day, do a different sunnah. Every week, make a goal for yourself. Every month, try to make another milestone. Don't try to do everything all at once, which you may be able to do for one day, but the next day is too much. Then you lose confidence and you just give up and you relapse. It's very important to take things progressively, slowly, and Allah knows best. Only thing that I got was when a woman has her monthly cycle, what areas or prayers, that's the only thing I heard. Is going out. I'm sorry. Sister has her menstrual cycle at a certain time, and the rest I couldn't hear. It starts at a certain point in time, okay? And ends at a certain period of time, all right? Are there certain prayers that are made up? No, the prayer is not made up. The fasting is made up. The missed days of fasting of Ramadan, the prayers are not mandatory.
I think she means, like, for example, let's just say you're about to pray budget, but then you got your medicine. Is that prayer wajib upon you?
If the prayer came in and you were pure, and all of a sudden you became impure, you make up that prayer. Yes. Dhuhr came in, then you got your wahakadha. And some scholars even mention, even though it's not Asr time, but Asr time can be made during Dhuhr time in some instances. So you have to make up the Asr too. So therefore, if you were in a pure state, the menstruation came, wahakadha. Wallahu ta'ala alam. The safest thing to do. Wa yakum.
In the book, the Sheikh Rahimahullah, he says, he mentions Sahih Hadith, Hasan Hadith, Da'if Hadith, and then he mentions Athar Sahih. What does that mean?
Meaning that the chain of narration that goes back to Malik or Sufyan Thawri or goes back to Sa'id ibn Jubair is authentic as well. Meaning it's been traced back with the proper conditions of a valid narration, even though it's not to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so someone told me that you said that your class was really boring. And that disturbed me. It hurt my feelings. I was upset. Really? My class was boring? Oh, man. And then you saw me, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Munther said, or I said, Assalamu alaikum, or, you know, I look at you kind of funny now. I'll give you like a real, you know, what do you mean? What's the problem, Sheikh Munther? You know what you said about me? I said what? You said my class was boring. You said, I never said that. Really? Sister such and such told me. Sister such and such is a liar. I didn't talk to sister such and such since before the COVID pandemic. When did I tell her that your class was boring? So therefore, just because a person is quoted doesn't mean it is accurately quoted. You get the point? So athar, which is sahih, isnaduhu sahih, the atharun sahih, it can be like a hadith, which is sahih. Just because someone says Sufyan al-Thawri said, Malik ibn Anas said, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, it doesn't mean it is authentically traced back to them. Clear on that? Well, the sanad is only a part of the equation. In order for any narration to be sound, the chain must be sound, and the text itself has to be sound. So let's say, for example, back to that example about my classes being boring. Let's say the sister or the brother, there are two people between me and you. Sister Fulan told brother Fulan that you said my classes were boring. Let's say brother Fulan and sister Fulan are both trustworthy people. They're not liars. They know you. They talk with you, etc., etc. So it seems authentic, but the text, your classes are boring. I'm like, sister, sometimes she would never say that. She don't talk like that. She's a disrespectful sister. Even if she doesn't like the class, she's not going to say that. Something is wrong. Something's off. So when a person says that the chain of narration is sahih, it doesn't mean that the metin is sahih. But they're giving you at least that much, that at least the chain is sound. And the scholars of hadith have mentioned, for a report to be genuine, both the isnad and the matan have to be salim min ash-shududi wal illa. Wallahu alam. Isnad is the chain of reporters, the chain of narrators. So let's say I narrated from Sister Abdullah, who narrated from Sister Fatima, who narrated from Sister Amatullah that you said. Between me and you are three sisters. So this sister tells this one, she tells this one, she tells that one. That's the chain of narration between what you said and did and between my ears or my pen. Understand? And inshallah, you can check out the classes that we've done and which we've explained this, simplified this, with regards to what is a chain of narration and how does it work. Wallahu ta'ala alam. If you don't feel what? Does that mean that Allah hasn't accepted it? Yeah. No. Allah could accept the dua and give it to you years later. Allah could give it to you in the hereafter. Allah could protect you from losing the thing, something similar to what you asked for, etc. Some scholars hold the view that every single dua is accepted. Some scholars believe that. Is that Allah answers the dua of all His believing servants, but in different ways. Understand? And of course, there are times in which a dua clearly isn't going to be accepted, and that's the dua in which you're violating somebody's rights in. The dua that contains sin, a dua that contains disrespect, a dua in which you're being extreme or disrespectful to Allah, etc. But if you make a sound dua, a valid dua with a sincere heart, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He could give it to you in a time and a place in which you think was best, but Allah knew that this was a better place, a better time. Just because you don't feel it 100% doesn't mean that Allah hasn't answered your dua. Wallahu alam. How to keep your money in your hand and on your heart, that's very difficult. It's a challenge. Money is powerful. It's a fact. What's important is, from the ways of keeping it in your hand and not in your heart, is to realize is that Allah is the one who gave it to you and Allah can take it away. And to realize is that there are very low people who have money, and there are very high, beautiful people who don't have money. Money is never, ever a scale of the quality of a person. So therefore, it doesn't make no sense for me to worship the money and to be connected and attached to a thing that this low person has. La. Money is something which is to be used. It's something that make it easy for you. It's not something in which you're supposed to be used and work. It's the opposite. The money is supposed to work for you. Also, bid'nillahi ta'ala is to realize is that when you become a victim of your desires, you become a prisoner. You're trapped. And just think about how depressed, think about how much you're going to suffer when that money is taken away from you. And that's because the money's in your heart versus it's only in my hand. Inshallah, I'll get it back. I'll make more. I'll recuperate. I'll figure it out. I'll bounce back. Versus, oh man, what am I going to do? I lost all my money. So just think about how you're going to feel when you attach yourself to a thing that must leave you. And that's one of the greatest realities of life, and that is detachment. Everything that Allah has lent you, you have to mentally prepare yourself to walk away from it one day. It's not going to remain forever. So you have to train yourself. These are some of the ways of keeping money in your hand and not in what? Not in your heart. Wallahu alam. About the nafs. There's several books. In general, I would steer you in the direction of the books of Ibn Qayyim. His entire library, The Sciences of the Soul and of the Heart. And there are many other great scholars as well. Wallahu alam. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, his works. But before that, is to read the different chapters in the hadith books that talk about the soul, softening the heart, melting the heart. Wallahu alam. Recommend to a Muslim that feel on my previous advice. Take things slow, easy, step by step. Make one achievement, 2, 3, and then you build momentum. And most importantly is never lose hope and never give up. And know for sure that Allah Azza wa Jal possesses the hearts. And He can change and guide and misguide when He wills. So beg Allah for strength. Declare your weakness to Allah. Declare your frustration to Allah. Leave it in Allah's hands, but you have to take the necessary effort to change yourself. Take things slowly, and then most importantly, we said you must keep and have good company. Positive company. You have to be around those people to pick you up when you fall down. As far as if you're by yourself or you think that you can do it by yourself, it's going to be very difficult. Wallahu ta'ala alam. That there? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Someone who says that they're addicted to music, what would I recommend to them? Well, first and foremost, I would commend them. It's a good thing that you have acknowledged that you're addicted to something. One of the most difficult steps of overcoming addiction is acknowledging addiction. So let's talk about drugs now. Who wants to acknowledge that they're addicted to drugs? You're a drug addict. You're a such and such head. That's hard. That's harsh. I can quit when I want. I can stop when I want. I'm not addicted. I use it, but I'm not addicted. No, they're different. They use this type of drug. I don't do that type of drug. I just smoke this. I just drink this. Right? Talk about alcohol. These people are heavy, heavy drinkers. They drink vodka. I just drink beer. That doesn't mean that you're not addicted to the beer. Just because you're only addicted to marijuana doesn't mean that you're not an addict like those who abuse cocaine, heroin, meth, LSD, etc., 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 pills, etc., etc., etc. All right, cough syrup or whatever the case may be. So one of the hardest steps is for a person to acknowledge addiction. I need help. I'm weak. I'm messed up. Unfortunately, once a person acknowledges that, that's a big step in recovery. And so many people, it's hard for them to take that basic step. So that's first and foremost. Okay, tayyib. So you're addicted to music. Let's talk about how you got addicted to it. Let's talk about some of the harms of it. Let's talk about what are the things that it prevents you from. Let's talk about what the Quran and Hadith says about it, etc. You get them help gradually. Gradually, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. That's what I would say. And Allah surely knows best. Would I recommend listening to nasheeds? Yes and no. But there has to come a time in which no matter what the thing is, you just can't listen to something. You have to learn how to have peaceful quiet every now and then. It's like a drug. The hospital, they're going to wean this person off of this heavy drug with smaller drugs. And that may be needed at the time. But there must come a time in which a person is free from heroin and free from this type of pill. No pills, period. So that's not the thorough weaning process. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Let alone the fact that if you take a lighter version of a thing, not saying that nasheeds are the same. I'm trying to make the understanding. Oftentimes it leads you to doing what? Swaying back. And Allah knows best.
What would you advise a Muslim going through the death of a loved one?
The death of a loved one. Read the seerah. The Prophet, ﷺ, what was his status with Allah? How much did Allah love the Prophet? How much did the Prophet love Allah? What did Allah promise the Prophet? That didn't stop Allah from taking the lives of certain people from the Prophet ﷺ. So you can be sad, it's natural, you're a human being, but it's not but so far you're going to go. There were people that were 20, 50, 100 times better than you, closer to Allah, that suffered more than you did. Also realize the nature of life. Nothing in this world is going to last forever. All of these worldly things, material things, they must perish. So it's nothing more than just a date. That's all it is. It's easier said than done, of course, but that's the bitter reality of it. Everybody's going to die at one point in time. Thirdly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He takes something from you and He gives you so many other things. The reward, Allah's good pleasure, Allah's guidance, and a new family member, a baby, a newborn, a this, a that. This one passed and this one is born. So these are all different ways of coping with the pain of death. And death is painful. But you're not the first person to suffer, and you won't be the last. There were countless people who lost their loved ones, their husbands, their wives, their children, their grandfathers, their grandmothers, babies, miscarriages. You're not the first person to suffer. Wallahu a'lam. Advising someone who's going through depression? First and foremost is you have to return to Allah, the giver of happiness, and the causer of lack of happiness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one who makes those smile and make those cry. So you have to beg Allah and ask Allah to take your frown and turn it upside down. Before you get into therapy, before you get into pills or alcohol or music or this or this or this or that. Ask Allah, the one, the maker of it, to give it to you and to remove that from you. That's step number one. And that's in general dua. Step number two are the specific du'as of the Prophet ﷺ that asked Allah's protection from grief and from sadness. Thirdly, it's to sit down and to realize whatever is causing you to be depressed could be worse. Whatever's causing you to be depressed is something which is oftentimes out of your control. It's in the past. It's nothing you could have done. It was meant to happen to you whether you were a good or a bad person, period. You were depressed with regards to anxiety, the future, what's going to happen, etc. Nothing is going to happen unless Allah wills it. And in most cases, the worst that you fear, it doesn't turn to be the worst. You always think the shadow is always bigger than the actual object. You get the point I'm trying to make? Also, you have to be mindful of what you eat and drink. There's certain foods and drinks that cause depression or lead to depression. Also, you have to be mindful of the people that you're around. Misery loves company. You're around depressed people, people who sob, people who wallow in the muddy pit of depression. You have to remove yourself from them. And you have to deal with people of positivity. You have to deal with people who are about progressing and moving forward in life. These are all ways of stopping and combating, protecting, and removing the depression from yourself. And last but not least, of course, is therapy. Islamic therapy and also maybe clinical therapy, but depending on what and who's giving you that therapy. And Allah knows best.
Inshallah, take one more or two more questions.
Khair, inshallah. We're running out of time, guys. This will be our last question, inshallah. When it comes to keeping the ties of kinship? Ties of kin, ties of kith are the people that you're related to, period. Close or far. This person has a relation to you through this family member, then they're your kin. Also, with regards to those who are in your tribe, in your clan, your people, your race, those in your village, in your neighborhood, that's in general as well. Not as strong as the family member, but you get the point I'm trying to make. As far as how often, that depends on your culture. There's some cultures in which you have to visit your mother and father every day. Your mother and father they come over your house every day. There's some cultures the mother walks into the house. And there's some cultures the mother has to knock on the door. It depends on your culture. As long as the culture doesn't go against Islam. Understand? So therefore, if a person comes from a culture in which you have to stop by your mother's house every day. There's nothing in the Quran and Sunnah saying that you can't do that. That's haram so therefore, that's what you got to do. And if it's once a week, once a month, every 3 days, phone call, that, depending on the culture. Wallahu alam. Clear? Inshallah, jazakumullah khairan. May Allah bless you, sisters. May Allah give you guys the success to all that is good in this world and in the next. I would advise you guys to keep reading, keep studying, stick together, stay together, avoid gossiping, avoid backbiting, avoid jealousy, avoid envy, and avoid becoming victims of stereotypes, many victims that men and women have about women. Break those stereotypes, studying, being flimsy, so on and so forth. Walk the straight path, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. That's my advice. And Allah surely knows